Hi, welcome back. In this segment, we're going to continue talking about objections. And this is the third and final type, which is obstructing attacks. Here we have an example here, and as you note, it says, this is an obstructing type of attack, since it attempts to block the movement of certainty within the line of reasoning. So, rather than heading in the opposite direction or later branching out, this type of attack tries to put roadblocks right in the middle of the bridge, saying you don't want to travel this direction. And they fall into they can be described as falling into two separate categories. One is an objection to the premise or the assumption, and the other type of obstructing attack is to the line of reasoning as a whole. Now, you can spend a whole class just talking about this slide, so I'm not going to go into detail on what all these mean. Just I want to give you a awareness of them so that you can begin to have a sense of the type of and the number of objections that can be made to a premise or a line of reasoning. So here, let's go through these here. So these are obstructing attacks, and one would be, well, the premise or assumption is, for example, premise one, that it's inconsistent, and that could mean that there's a opposite premise that points in the opposite direction, or it's ambiguous, or it's vague, or it's conditional, meaning that there's conditions for this to be true that haven't been considered, or it's outright false or weak or irrelevant because it doesn't connect into the linkage for the final conclusion, or it's unsubstantiated, meaning it needs more converging pieces of evidence to support the truth of this, or it's overgeneralized or not authoritative. And there's, of course, many others. But I just want you to get the idea of the principle that, remember, following the path of where certainty goes and how much can make that passage, depending on how strong each premise is, one of the ways of stopping the flow of that certainty or impeding it is through obstructing attacks on individual premises. Now here, we're going to go through some examples of actually trying to create an obstruction to the whole line of reasoning. For example, you could say that the line of reasoning is illogical, which would mean that there's not a proper linkage between each of the premises and an appropriate start and finish. Or it's irrelevant, meaning that it doesn't lead to the conclusion at issue. Or that it's inconsistent. So this line of reasoning may be inconsistent with other lines of reasoning that are also in evidence. It can be unconditional, incomplete, meaning there are missing premises that have yet to be found. This can be, for example, in cases like conditional relevance, you can argue the line of reasoning is weak, it's fallacious, meaning it's not structurally correct, or the argument can be made, the objection can be made that it's piling inference upon inference, that you've got so many linkages that it's just speculative. So this obstructing attack is the last of the three types of attacks that generally are made to lines of reasoning. Thank you.